What?
Maybe. I can't live in a place where the definition of success is, I'm not drowning. We've been arguing, my partner and I, for months, in that way that couples do when life stresses had been piled on so high that you lose sight of the fact that you're on the same team. Our occasional outbursts had become a cannibalistic routine of repetitive gripes we unleashed on each other on an almost daily basis. But this statement was a sudden left turn, an arrow of truth that hit me square in the heart. This is another I love you, Vancouver, but I have to leave you letter. And we're going to talk about this on Agree or Disagree, the podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Agree or Disagree, the podcast. It is I, your favorite host of Agree or Disagree, the podcast, Kevin Olenick, because I'm the only host of Agree or Disagree, the podcast. But there may be others soon in the future. Who knows? I have lived in Vancouver for a little over 2 years, and I think this letter that was presented in the Tyee by the Jessica Barrett, who is the editor in Van Mag, wrote a letter describing her experience of Vancouver and why she is moving from Vancouver to the fine city of either Edmonton or Calgary, depending on her perspective on the interviews. We're going to read a little bit more from this, and we are actually going to talk about this and really the part of, and I'm now going to get into why we're going to respond the way that we are, which is not necessarily rude, but I think it's going to be different than what I feel like we're hearing in Vancouver. So that spring, this is a little bit later on in the article, which I will post as part of the link. That spring, I took to riding my bike around town under these floral canoped leaves and fell completely and unabashedly in love. The affair wasn't just fueled by the natural beauty of Vancouver. I was equally intrigued by the social fabric of the city, the distinctions of culture and class evidenced in every neighborhood boundary. Back then, the prevailing public debate wasn't about the growing divide between rich and the rest of us, but about how to lift up our most vulnerable people to create a more inclusive city. Or at least that's how it seemed to me. As a newly graduated BFA, I spent my ample spare time in exploring the city. I'd amble around places like Chinatown, Gastown, and the downtown east side, or the industrial rubble of southeast False Creek, pre-Olympic Village. I wanted to understand this strange city that wore its social problems on its sleeves in a way that, to me, seemed refreshingly honest. It was one of these wonders that I wound up at the opening of Insight in 2003, completely by accident and unaware I was witnessing the beginning of one of the most successful public health programs in the world. Looking back, it's no wonder I ended up trading in dance for journalism. I went to Langara College, and like many aspiring reporters, had dreams of charging into conflict zones and bringing down corrupt foreign governments with the power of my pen. But when I did get the chance to do some reporting overseas, I found, to my great disappointment, daunting and draining. I came back to Vancouver and landed what I thought would be a boring gig covering West Vancouver Municipal Council for the North Shore News, and to my great surprise, found it utterly fascinating. We have two people here that have invested in Vancouver, and I feel like this conversation is, we read these letters, we feel bad about this here in Vancouver, and it's like, oh, here we go again with another conversation about the affordability crisis in Vancouver, which is a big problem. I'm not going to lie, it's a huge problem here in Vancouver. But there are people that are investing in this city, and I thought today we would get a response to this letter and unspell the underbelly myth of Vancouver. Because, there are people that have moved here that are my friends, and they haven't found success. They found it depressing and draining, and they left. And that happened. But there are other people, one of them that has been on this podcast a few times, named Callie, that is actually loving it out here in Vancouver, and I would say has made a tremendous change in her life and how she's lived in Vancouver. So, welcome. That's my ramble. I have to my right Melody Owen, who has been on my podcast before. We talked about the Authors Club. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good, good. To my left, making her debut, is the founder of Interactive B Media. I said that right.
That is correct.
Yes, that is B Kapitan. Did I say your last name right?
That is also very correct.
Yay,
Kevin, you're awesome.
Thank you. I don't know if I did that when I talked about Deirdre Sirianni. I think I butchered her name. And I might have done that again. Sorry if you're listening. So, you guys had just had the opportunity before we started this podcast to read this article. So I want to give you guys the opportunity to lay out what you have to say.
Melody, go ahead.
Oh, okay, thank you. Well, this it was a very long article.
Oh, you want me to keep it up because I was putting it.
Oh no, that's okay. It was a very long article, and I feel the author's pain in the price of housing. I've lived in Tokyo. It's incredibly expensive city as well, so I feel the people of Tokyo's pain in the price of housing. So there are some very expensive cities in the world. Vancouver is one of them. If you choose to live there, you have to be aware that you live in a very, very expensive city. And then she spoke about other things, kind of cultural things. And I think that the price of housing is something that is set and that you cannot control. I can't just go, well, I'm going to live on this block because that block's too expensive. It's all expensive. But culturally, I think we have a lot of choices in Vancouver. Who we have in our lives, the communities we are involved with. There are so many choices in Vancouver of who we interact with on a daily basis. And so she'd chosen a community that apparently didn't serve her. This is the feeling I get.
We're not judging her. We're just observing.
No, we're just observing. And that, obviously, if the price of housing is really expensive and you don't have a community that you feel really, really connected with, then I would want to leave the city too.
I think the reality is like if she went to New York or Los Angeles, there's different mentalities. And as soon as you say New York, you're getting like cold, rustle, bustle. Hey, I'm walking over here. You know, in LA, it's like, oh, I broke a nail. And like, you know, are you an agent? Right? So there's different mentalities. And Vancouver's no different. And I agree with Melody, where being here, it's kind of your core. What is it? Like it's a very transient place. And I just want to kind of interject of like what happened prior to this kind of rent explosion.
Please, because I would like to know this.
So I have a theory. I actually am from Calgary, from Kapitan. Yeah.
Wait a minute.
I grew up there. I know. Don't. I
can't judge you. I'm from Calgary.
Are you? Well, I'm still a Flames fan.
Yay!
There we go.
Sorry, Melody. I'm so
Darren
sorry.
Fury is my hero for putting in Stanley Cup. Yeah, it's an awesome city. That's a place where your neighbor will come over and say, "Hey, we're having a barbecue. Like, bring over some beer and bring the kids too." That will not happen here in Vancouver. That will not. No. Hey. My experience. I'm relating only to myself.
Okay.
I haven't had that privilege, okay, of having those kind of neighbors and being in an environment where that was an option of even having a backyard, okay? So that was my choices. Mm-hmm. But here's my theory on why we're in this crazy kind of like out of control cost of living here. And it goes down to this. Any city in the world, I would love to see a study. There probably is one out there. Look at a city that's hosted the Olympics. And then you're going to look at people who are very, very greedy, who are going to jack up the rent triple, because for those 10 days, they can make... And I know of a guy, when I was living briefly in Whistler for 6 months prior to that, made $20,000 for renting out a part of his apartment. Well, and then he decided to go to Mexico during that time. Now, of course, he's not going to keep doing that, but the other people who were renting out units during that time didn't adjust their rents after the fact. Okay? They stay consistent. So then we were on the world map of this beautiful place. Well, of course, foreign investors are wanting to jump on. And that's where the second part was. And I believe that the Walrus did an incredible article about the terms of flipping. Let's just give a quick example of people who are retired. They're empty nesters. They don't need this huge house anymore. And she doesn't want to clean it. He doesn't want to clean the gutters. So they put their house on the for $2.5 million. Somebody comes along and says, "We'll give you $3 million cash." Of course, they're going to take it. Walrus report says that within 48 hours, that house is flipped 4 times, and now it's $4 million. The people who have purchased these homes have not even come to the property. They sit empty, and they're just from foreign investors. Now, we know that they've come along. Christy Clark's no longer in the government, and now they've introduced like this, a tax that if you're a foreign individual, that you just can't come along and snap it because you got the coin, and therefore that's why a lot of people are without a home, is because these homes are sitting empty. All right, so it's not just that, but if we talk about living here, so that's the reality of what it's like and why some of that happened. But living here, I've had, as a woman in tech, I make interactive books for the iPad, and I actually came here when I was an accountant, and a company sponsored me. I know that if I had remained in Calgary, I would have not had the same opportunities that I have here. I don't know if it's just more of a creative city, it's a more tech city, but I've been embraced because of my talent and my ability to just move forward within an industry that embraces just somebody who's a go-getter, right? I put myself out there. Now, I'm sure that other people, I've had my low moments just like everybody else during the dot bombs, but I do feel that by being here, I've invested and raised my family here. And yes, there's been tough times, but I do feel that there's a future for Vancouver. We just need to rethink of how we want to live here and what it is, the quality of our life is. So, and I think, Melanie, you probably have some really great ideas about that.
Awesome.
I'm waiting for you to start out some ideas.
No, that was awesome. I've lived in Tokyo. I've lived in Japan. I've lived down in South America. I've lived in a couple different cities in Canada. And what I realize is your city is what you make it. And so if you choose, and I remember that, a few years ago, Vancouver, the no fun city, right? The boring city. It's like, well, guess what? If we all decide Vancouver's boring, we're going to be right. And if we all decide Vancouver's fun, we're going to be right. Whatever decision we make collectively, we're going to make that happen. We're going to be right. And I think Vancouver's a fun place. I have a lot of fun in Vancouver. And so I really believe that where you live is what you make it. And as you said, there are lots of opportunities for you here. And that feels like that was because it was Vancouver. It's because that's what you believed, right? I think that if we get to choose the future of Vancouver, as you say, we need to decide what Vancouver's going to look like and how we're going to live. And if we can collectively make that decision, then collectively we can make that happen. Because we are, in the end, a community. And we're not that big of a city. In terms of world stage, we're a tiny little town.
Yeah.
And so it's not that hard.
There's a city east of us here that is actually growing bigger.
That's right. So, Vancouver isn't a huge town. It's not that hard for us to get together and figure out what we want and make that happen, to be honest.
It's 2 degrees of separation, really, honestly. Like, if you go on your LinkedIn or your Facebook, somebody's going to know somebody that knows somebody.
Yes.
And they're going to go, wow, you know this person? Yeah, I do. And it's because it is that small town mentality that is really there. And people, once you get connected, and we were speaking about this prior to is know your niche, know what makes you happy, what is your passion, and if it's cycling, there's cafes that are dedicated to that. Right on Burrard, is it Mustache Cafe?
Yeah.
If you're vegan, if you you know, whatever your cultural gig is, there's a tribe for you here. It might be small, but like in Vancouver, you can be transgender, you can be gender fluid, you can be like, you can go to AA and be gender fluid and have a meeting just for you. Like, how many other places in Canada, in the world, can you say that? Like, there's so many nonprofit groups. Like, when there's a rally, people show up, regardless of the cause. Now, people may complain, like, do you have to rally about everything? But you can have a voice here in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's so different than other places.
And it's interesting, what came to my mind as you were talking. So, you know, if you talking about niche, finding your niche. So I'm sorry, but I live in Vancouver and I don't drink Starbucks and I don't do yoga. I don't have a dog to walk. You know, I don't live in kits.
Wait a minute. Are you called? Are we allowed to call you Vancouver right now? What's going on here?
Yeah.
So, but you know, people say, "Oh, Vancouver, yoga, Lululemon, Starbucks." They name all these things that identifies Vancouverites as Vancouverites. I don't fit into a single one of those boxes, not one. And yet,
It's funny because I think Jessica Barrett wanted to be. No offense, Jessica, if you're listening, we're just responding to what you're saying here. But Jessica, sorry to interrupt. But Jessica wanted all of that.
Well, no, she wanted it, but she embraced it.
She embraced it.
In the article, it makes it clear that she embraced what she thought the stereotypical Vancouverite was like. Yet, I'm not that at all, and I fit in here well. I have a wonderful community of people around me. Some of them do yoga, some of them don't.
Yeah.
Some of them have dogs, some of them don't, you know. Some of them drink at Starbucks, not with me.
Melody, you embrace diversity, and you have a wide spectrum of friends and influencers, thought leaders, people that you just say hi to, and you may not even know their last name, but you're also very approachable.
Right.
And that is why I think you may have found happiness.
Yes. Well, so happiness, and I'm not happy all the time. We talked a little bit about this. I talked about happiness not being the most important thing in life. But, you know, I tend to be fairly happy most of the time.
How about we use the word content?
Content, I like that word. Content is good. But I think that's something we have inside ourselves rather than needing it to come from the outside. Mm-hmm. So I don't depend on my community and you know, other people for my happiness. That's my job.
Yeah.
And
so to be a contentous, but I relate to her story in a way that she's having anxiety, she's having emotional, you know, but I hate being a woman myself. I've had these moments in my life where I've not felt on my game and I didn't feel that my world was being receptive. My world wasn't mirroring my intent of what I felt I was putting out there. But you know what? I think that could have been just possibly a moment in time in my life where I was not really projecting what I was receiving what I was projecting, probably. But that's life.
Part of the life journey.
It is.
Life is not always going to be puppy dogs, unicorns, and rose petals, right?
Human experience.
We're going to have, you know, I've had times in my life where I didn't have enough money.
Exactly.
Right? I didn't have enough support. I didn't have enough. I've lacked in my life. And it's not because I was in the wrong city or... It was just I need to rethink and reframe my life and make better decisions, or maybe not even better, different decisions.
Right.
And I can't say that anything outside really affected that as much as who I was and the choices I was making about me. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just say that there's been when I was on my game and in my heart I was well enough to move forward with the ideas. I just put them out into the world, and I have been embraced by the right teacher at the right time, and I love Vancouver. It makes me, I say I am privileged in the sense that I can walk the seawall. I can do that, what they call what's forest bathing, is I get to walk through that. And I live in one of the most beautiful places in the world, and I don't take it for granted. And it's the simplest things that give me quality of life.
And to that point, something in the article that was said was that the author and all of her friends seem to struggle with not having enough time and being overwhelmed, not having enough time. They couldn't support each other. Life was so busy; they had to work so hard just to survive. There was no more free time and no more fun time. And I don't think that's just Vancouver. I think that's a little bit of a world mentality or a North American mentality right now. And life is so busy, and we have to go, 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 go. We're actually making those choices. I have time to walk through the forest. I have time to go hiking in the mountains. I have time to do that. In fact, when I stop working and I take time to go walk in the forest, to go hike in the mountains, I am far more productive. And this is me, I'm a workaholic. We all know that I am one of the, I work so hard, and I'm the one known to put in too many hours. And so I fall into the same trap that the author falls into. But I also know that I need to choose to take time off to walk in the forest, because if I take a day off, the next day I'll get 3 days worth of work done. But if I work every single day, so I find a lot of people in Vancouver, I can't do this, I can't have fun, I can't do this, I can't do this. Yes, you can. Choose to do that, and you will see that you'll actually be more productive, and you'll have
What's
more
the term
that make sense?
Yes, because Brittany Brander talked about this. We talked. What's the term?
I don't know.
Self-care?
No, it's an entrepreneurial term. It's sort of this like the hustle of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs are told they have to hustle.
Yeah.
Have to hustle all the time. You always have to work. Hustle. Okay, I'm an entrepreneur. I get the hustle. But I hustle better when I take care of myself.
Yeah.
Self-care, then hustle.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to say how old I am. But I don't look it, okay? So those creams are paying off, honey. And all that self-care. But the thing is when you're in your 50s, you're not trying to compete with the Joneses anymore. You realize that facade of bullshit is not success. Success is being able to walk through the woods and then come home and be productive and bang out something amazing.
That's
right? And something that you're proud of and that you can engage people with and not feel less than. That's true success.
Yeah.
And if there's even some money attached to that somewhere down the line, voila, peanut butter sandwiches. Like, this is how health is wealth.
Yeah. Start with self-care.
Yeah, and exactly, being an entrepreneur, you're right. The hustle, the struggle is real. But it is a choice.
Yeah.
Yes, it is a choice. I agree.
And that's not a Vancouver thing. That is what we have somehow trained entrepreneurs. I feel like I'm an entrepreneur. I've made $0.00 on this podcast. But I'm still feeling like an entrepreneur. Just an unsuccessful.
No, that's not true.
No, planting seeds, my friend.
You're wrong. Do you know how long it takes to build? Do you know how long it takes to freeze that iceberg that's below the? You know that picture of the iceberg, right? With just the tip is.
Yeah.
You're doing all that below work, right?
Yeah.
You need to be smart to get the last piece, the money. But there's a lot of work. We'll have to do another show on how many years I've worked to build my community, and I'm still not making as much money as I'd like to.
Right.
You
That's
gotta,
another show, Kevin.
You got to listen to a lot of Gary Vanderchuck saying the F-bombs and just kicking you in the butt, just saying failure is a necessity and you need to try and keep plugging away, because by planting those seeds, that is where you're going to see there's no overnight success.
No.
And just knowing that, and when people cannot easily take away your fame, your glory, your titles based on 20 years of experience, no matter what you do, right? So, I mean, unless you do something scandalous to another human being, then you're right to have a tainted background. But if your talent is based on just being committed and giving it your all, that's your legacy.
Yeah.
And that is success.
Yeah.
And, sorry, go ahead.
Of course, I'm from Calgary. You didn't know that before this conversation, but I am from Calgary. And I moved out here for broadcasting. Last minute whim, basically. I was getting tired at my job. I started this podcast. And I was like, starting to love this podcast. And I'm like, I got to get better at it. I got to get better at this. So I moved out here to study broadcasting school in August of 2015. Came out of here in September of 2015. And I feel like, I feel like, and I've told the people in Calgary, I would love to bring you all here and put you in Vancouver in a box. But unfortunately, there's nowhere to live here, and I can't put you in a box. That's just, and we'll talk about that, I guess, in a second. But I feel like something in me changed in terms of creativity here as well. And I think it's the air, it's the ocean, and it's just, there is something, it's hard to explain.
We're West Coast fresh.
We're West Coast fresh. Right? West Coast fresh. But there is a different creative vibe in this city that I feel in Calgary. And it's not that Calgary isn't creative. They're doing a lot of great work. But it's different.
It's true. Being a creative individual, I'm an artist first, and I knew I inherited my father's talent, that also my grandmother's, and it was painful. I could not connect with other creative people, not at that time. Mm-hmm. And when I came to Vancouver, it was almost like I was ashamed in Calgary to show that I was an artist. And then when I came to Vancouver, it was like, wow, you're an artist? Oh, me too. Like, hey, show me your stuff, right? So I think there is a collective vibe of people who are just maybe entrepreneurial, but more open and being, once you start talking to people and take that chance.
Well, we don't have conversations here. And sorry, Calgary, I gotta say this. We don't have conversations here about art and its taxpayer dollars. We talk about art and the value of art. And we're not knocking down artists, which happens in Calgary all the time. I'm sorry, it's not been a good area for artists in Calgary. You can piss on me for that all you want, but you know I'm right.
Well, it's interesting because talking about art, depending on how wide that term is.
Yeah.
Vancouver's not a great scene for the local bands, right? Mm-hmm. So I have friends who are musicians who live in Toronto and Montreal because that's where you go if you want to be in the local music scene. And they'd love to live here, but that's just Vancouver's not a local music scene kind of place. You go to Toronto, you go to Montreal, you can go club to club and see all the local musicians, and they're recording, they're putting it out there. This is not that. This town is not for that. But there is a type of art that it is that does get honored here. So I'm just widening what I mean.
The director.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
A huge tech community here in Vancouver.
Absolutely.
Animation.
Is Amazon moving in?
There's huge, just knowing that there's that tech creative vibe, right? Yeah. So if you're someone who is extremely talented when it comes to doing that, you're going to do really well here. There's a lot of gaming companies.
Yeah.
Electronic arts. Yeah. It makes billions and billions of dollars.
But there's also a lot of little other types of tech. We have HubSpot, right? We have Unbounce. We have a lot of kind of tech companies that have grown really big here, do really well here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is also my theory of Vancouver, because I had visions of grandeur of moving to Vancouver before, but it didn't really happen until the school thing happened, and then everything fell into place. But do we have ridiculously high expectations of this city? Do we look at this ocean and this beach and the beauty around here that you can walk in the forest and Stanley Park and there's views everywhere? And do we fall in love with the enamor of this beauty of the city and forget that there are some legitimate things you have to think about before you move here?
Well, I didn't think before I moved here, so.
Oh, but you made it work.
I moved here December 31st, 1996.
Wow.
Hours before we rang in the new year. Flew in on a plane, got a hotel room.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've been here a long time. So I don't know. I've never had any expectations of the city other than I hope I can find a home here. Yeah.
My company moved me. So I had a job. They moved me. It was the easiest move ever. They came in, they packed my stuff, they put it on a van, I got on a plane, and they unpacked my stuff. That was the best. But the partner I had at the time, he missed Calgary a lot, and he now lives there again. He only lasted a few years, and he was in construction, and I don't fault him for that. But again, a non-creative individual, very, I honestly, I mean, I'll be honest. Some days I've said to myself, I wonder if I lived like Saskatchewan, I would be able to own my own house right now, right? Or if I lived in Prince Edward Island, I would be able to live in one of those cute Victorian little babies, you know what I mean? And I could imagine myself, like, really immersing myself and going, well, maybe if then I think, I can't really handle the cold and lots of snow because I have arthritis.
So you've made choices.
I made choices, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I think it's also, you have to be resourceful. I think that happens anywhere. I'm really fortunate where if you apply to cooperative housing, yeah, there's a long wait, but that's an option, and that's where I've been able to thrive because I can fill out a form and go on a waiting list. And I'm an upstanding citizen. I'm not. I don't have, issues that might interfere. And at one time I did have a pet, and I paid my gosh darn it pet deposit because my pet was important to me. Yeah. So yes, that was the other thing about this. The writer had a pet, and I understand that is a real concern and issue and a struggle, and that is where I do feel for the writer, because pets are a part of the family, so that is a challenge. And even if you have children,
how many apartments across Canada allow pets?
I don't know.
No
idea.
I don't know.
Because it's not common in Calgary. It's not common in Edmonton. Mm-hmm. It's not common in Saskatchewan. So if you're going to move and own a house and you need to rent before with your cog.
So we have pets.
Yeah.
Where I am. Mm-hmm. But we had to look.
And
we had
pet
to find
deposit,
it.
Right?
Yeah. We didn't pay a pet deposit.
You're lucky.
We had to look. That's it.
No.
Back to your romantic notion of Vancouver. So people see the mountains and the oceans, and I said I had no romantic notion. I just came. The reason I came, I'm from Ontario, and I flew around the world teaching English and having adventures, and the last place I stayed was in South America, a place I absolutely loved. But I did eventually decide to come back. Because I'd been living the other side of the equator, and I hadn't really met snow in so many years, I decided I didn't want snow. So the only romantic notion I had was that I would have less snow in my life if I lived in Vancouver. And it's actually why I chose to live in Vancouver. But there's been so much amazing things that have happened since then that I feel like I chose the right place, right? So I didn't have notions of mountains and ocean and life would be wonderful. I didn't see it that way. I'd been traveling, and my life was great. I was young. I was traveling around the world. I was having a blast, and I just figured I'd move to Vancouver and continue having a blast and working hard because I've always worked hard.
Right.
And just to finish answering your question about the romantic notion of Vancouver, but you might be right. People see it. It's like, ooh, oceans and mountain, and I hear, nobody works in Vancouver. We're all at the beach if it's a nice day. It's like, well, somebody's working. I'm working.
Yeah, I'm working.
I work really, really hard.
I work really hard, too.
But there's that notion of Vancouverites can take time off anytime and go to the beach and go skiing. It's like, yeah, if you work hard and you take some time off and you have enough money to go do that, yes, you can.
Yeah.
Right? But then, as you said, make choices. I don't own a home either here in Vancouver right now.
So I wanted to just touch on something that's a little outside of this. We have a huge homeless problem here in Vancouver.
We do.
And I can't disclose who I've worked for or volunteered for, but it has to be with homeless individuals. And the age range is from youth to elderly when they're doing the homeless count, is that people who are not just people who are on the street, it's couch surfing and so forth. So knowing, and we have a large fentanyl problem, right, where we've lost a lot of people. So there's a lot, not just that beauty, there's that underbelly, that gentrification of the downtown east side. It is a pretty place to live, but we have our problems just like everybody else, right? And the reality is as a community, I do feel that there's people who are trying to make changes and to understand that the fallout between having this 1% of luxury, kind of that people who work at the beach, the reality is that we have single parents that can't afford to live in a place. And we find it very difficult to get community housing and so forth. And these are people who were born and raised here. So I guess my take in on it is I just throwing that kind of poo-poo-y kind of, Vancouver's not so beautiful. I think anywhere on the West Coast is going to have that problem because of the climate, because of other parts of the country. You're not going to be able to survive in 6 feet of snow. So a lot of these individuals will come west, and they find themselves wanting to go back pretty quick when they realize that the place is like, the streets aren't lined with pot leaves. Well, they might be, but there's a dispensary on
commercial in Maine. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, there's a dispensary on every corner. But that's the other thing about Vancouver, where other parts of the country that we have is like, marijuana is now a part of our healthcare program, right? Yeah. And so that diversity is not happening in Calgary. I'm sure it's going to change, but you can't go to different parts of Canada expect to, if you smell reefer walking down the street or pot, you think somebody's just medicating. You're not thinking like call the cops. Right. Whereas somebody with
the cops wouldn't come for a
joint. They'd be like,
this town.
Yeah.
They'd not be able to do anything else if they came for a joint in this town.
Yeah. Oh, right? They'd laugh.
Marijuana is just part of our culture here.
It is. Yeah. It is very much, and it's a part of our economy as well.
It is so true.
So I just wanted to throw out the diversity of what it is like to live here, and some things living here I kind of take for granted, and traveling around different parts of the world. Like Melody, is that, when you come home here, there's a different kind of vibe. It's a different kind of acceptance. And we were talking about, again, we were talking about being gay, transgender, having a different cultural background and embracing it, and being able to find a restaurant with that, and good restaurants as well. And people embracing it, not just from somebody's own culture, and that's the only type of people that come there. Like, everybody will show up and try your food and go, this is good.
Yeah. And that's a really important part of my life, what you're talking about, diversity. My friend group is so diverse in every aspect. I feel like I live a very rich, deep life because I'm able to connect with people of all ages. Something the author said was she tends to have a friend group that is in the same age group, and therefore they're at the same life stage and they have the same problems, and it's harder to support each other. I have friends ranging from early 20s to 70s and beyond.
Yeah, me too.
Friends from all different cultures that speak all different languages. They cook for me. Thank you, friends, for feeding me your awesome food from all over the world. This is a really, really important part of my life. And the fact that I live in Vancouver, where I can embrace this, and when I see problems, I can speak up against them. That's really important to me. And I know there's racism in this town. I don't feel it because I might. I'm just no one is
white privilege. Yeah, not knowing
I
it.
First admit I don't feel it. I know it exists, and when I speak to friends, they usually tell me, no, not really, not like other places. So, and I don't know because it's not my experience. I can only say what other people have said to me. But I hope that there's less racism here than there's in other places. And I know that the diversity of my friendships is so important to me. And Vancouver offers that.
Yeah, so I was going to just touch on that. So there's a huge interracial relationships. Like, nobody's going to bat an eye if there's two different cultures and races and skin tones or genders. Like,
or two girls kissing.
Yeah.
Who cares?
It's just like, get a room if you're getting too crazy about that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, tone that down. I'm a little jealous. But, you know, I think that, like, if you're in Calgary, if you saw two men kissing on the street, that wouldn't fly.
Really?
It might be changing.
It's changed a lot.
Maybe.
It's changed a lot that way, but I think right now with some of the political talk with Bill 24, which is basically an improvement on gay and straight alliances in school around parenting, if parents have the right to know that their kid is in a GSA, there's some people banging their heads on, like, why is Alberta still in 1982?
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a lot of people that have, like, you know what, get over this, it's ridiculous, this is reality, and stop it. You know?
Move on.
Move on, yeah.
If you're paying taxes and you're not doing crazy stuff,
Yeah.
then carry on, people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's, yeah. But yeah, there's a whole thing about co-op sex ed. And, yeah, anyway. That's, listen to the Bill 24 podcast.
I will.
Yeah, listen to that one.
Wow.
I gotta catch her up on what's going on in Alberta.
Wow.
You're
It's
like,
okay.
Crazy.
So what? Okay, so this. I was going to say something about the homeless population. I think that is where I wanted to go, or the affordability. What do you? I don't want to say what do we need to do to fix it, because that's an entire different podcast. I think.
Well, fast answer to that.
Yeah.
House people.
Yeah.
Just house people.
Yeah. Oh, that's where I was going to go.
Start by offering safe
Okay, yeah.
place to sleep.
Yeah. Like,
People think it's expensive to deal with mental health and to deal with homelessness, but the truth is, if you deal with it up front, then there are more solutions. You think we should ignore it?
Okay, so just because if you've got a guy who's been binning for a long time and he has never lived in his own apartment, I worked for an agency that helped people hard to house individuals. And some of these binners turned into hoarders.
Yeah.
And they didn't know how to live in a place. And now I'm not saying that people don't deserve a home. Don't get me wrong.
I hear you. No, I hear you.
But I think, honestly, there's two things that need to happen in terms of housing people. People who have mental, which are called dual diagnosis, which is they have a mental health condition and they have an addiction at the same time. So with those two things being said, BC and all of probably Canada, as much as we have this amazing healthcare system, our mental health program is broken.
Yes.
Is broken beyond repair. And we don't know how to handle people who have addictions. So if you put those two together, even if you put somebody if you give them food, shelter, do their laundry, and you're trying to give them some form of structure so that they can be consistent in their life to achieve success. That's not rinse, repeat, addiction, and chaos. They have to have a lot of support, and there is not that happening.
I agree. So I wasn't saying force people to be in a safe place at homes. But I am saying offer it. There are people on the street who, if you offered them a safe place to live,
1000%.
they would take it. And every single person who lives on the street should be offered that as a first step. And I'm not suggesting they should be forced into it. I'm not suggesting everyone will take it.
Right.
But if we could get people off the street into a safe place, it'll make it. And they're people who want to be in a safe place. The people who are willing and can handle it and want to be there. If we would take that first step, they would be in a better place to get their lives back on track. I'm not talking about dual diagnosis. I'm just saying we have people on the street who have full-time jobs and just can't because, as the author, she's right, housing is expensive. So if we just gave homes to people who needed them, we would get things back on track.
Yeah,
Anyways, not to take over the podcast and change the topic.
No, but this is an important topic, and this is something because I talked when they did the modular housing open house on Robson Street. I don't know if you had a chance to check that out. I sat and talked to the guy for a few minutes, and I asked him a couple of questions. I asked, so who's going to be picked for these? He was like, it's a system from an agency. How's that done? Okay. So in these situations, how are you going to ensure that the people that are living there, as B mentioned, can have a structure to actually live in these homes and take care of these and live a structured life? He looked at me with like deer in the headlights. And that's concerning to me because this is the problem, I think, is we've talked so much about how housing is so affordable or unaffordable. It's not affordable. It's unaffordable. And it's a trendy conversation, but I'm not hearing like a practical, like, okay, there's some real questions here. Like you're throwing, this feels like another Band-Aid to a bigger problem. Which I think is a societal problem. It's not necessarily only a Vancouver problem.
So Jean Swanson has been an advocate in Vancouver for poverty for many, many years. Her husband and her, she's now running for legislation. So her idea is rent control. And I agree with her 1,000%. I think rent control, having more regulations in terms of how much you can charge based on, sizing, everything else, so that just because it's in a certain area that might be starting to become gentrified, right? Doesn't all of a sudden their rent on one block a week prior is now doubled because they put a fresh coat of paint. So when we start what they're called the renovictions, right? So if we have rent control, and that I think is the beginning. I truly believe that's the beginning. That conversation needs to happen. Policies have to be in place.
Let's just quickly expand on that because it's. I mean, we're talking about Vancouver. This is an issue, and everyone's talking about. What does that look like to you? How do you implement that? How do you say, like, where's the control? Like,
it has to be a provincial thing. That's my opinion.
Like, okay, so bachelor suites can only be like this much.
Well, I think like any project, if I've worked on a project, I assess the situation and see what's happening, what's working and what's not. Where's the potholes and where's things working really well. And then based on, say, square footage, so if something has a dishwasher or a hot tub, right, obviously higher end, but a place that is in Marpole shouldn't be the same price as downtown Vancouver, right, in the West End. If you're, there's always going to be luxury areas. And based on, so if they put a stake in the ground and went, okay, you're charging $2,000 a month for this type of place because it has X, Y, and Z in location, it has access to all these transit and the park and everything else. So then that's set in stone. So for the next 2 years, unless there is a significant upgrade or whatever have you, you cannot increase that rent because someone moves out and you put on a fresh coat of paint. That's where I see it happening. You can't dial back. Okay, you can't dial back. You can't expect people, because just the cost of a home here, you can't make people dial back. But you can make it stop jumping forward.
Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is if a tenant moves out, they can't increase the rent for the new tenant.
Right.
Okay,
and that's what's happening
because
right
now I rent, and my landlord can only increase rent a certain percentage each year.
Until you move out.
Until I move out.
That's right.
So that's what you're talking about.
That's
just to be
what
clear.
I'm talking about.
So if I were on a lease, if I had to sign a lease every year, then in Vancouver my landlord can increase the rent every time we sign a new lease. My landlord can increase the rent any number they want.
That's right.
But because I'm not on a lease, I rent. But I'm not on a lease. There's a certain percentage that is dictated each year that they can increase my rent.
Yes. And
I'm just making all clear.
But at the same time, those increases can happen, and it's based on. So if every year you're getting an increase, what I'm saying is based on. Let's put a stake in the ground.
Yeah.
And yes, there are things that are working. They are working well.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm just saying, but those places, if you want to move, and you all of a sudden you have to, and because nobody else has been abiding by that, the next person who comes into your place, and you've only been paying $1,700, but the going rate of market is $22. Right, your landlord's not going to go, well, I think I'm just going to keep that at $1,700. He's going to want that extra,
absolutely,
$500.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
That's what I'm suggesting is
that makes sense.
Is that based on the evaluation?
Yes.
He can't bump that up.
Yes.
And so that the pockets get deeper, and then he can't justify doing repairs.
And that solves the problem of evicting people to renovate, and which is really a guise to raise the rent.
Exactly.
Right. And that solves that particular problem.
Exactly, because if you're locked in for 2 years, right? I think 2 years is a good. A lot of people change lives in 2 years, right? But if 2 years you can evaluate that, economy's going to change, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the last two things I do want to talk about, because they're elephants in the room: snow and transit and snow. Why does it seem that we have such a head-scratching problem with snow? Why are other cities laughing at Vancouver about snow? I have a theory. I think some of them don't really know the issues. I think that you need to understand that when it's +7 here, it's actually -7. It's colder than you think, and it doesn't help. I know that there's a radio station in Calgary that always does some sort of Vancouver soft thing, whatever. But it's tend to take it I dress when it's +7. I dress like it's -7. If it was -2, I would dress like it's -12. It's just that's one thing. And the snow here, there's a lot of places that, SFU, for example, you cannot get up that hill with their snow. It is not possible. The entire city in U.S. is actually shut down because it's a hill. It's like a hill. You can't.
A 90-degree hill.
Yeah. Yes. It's a steep hill.
Yeah, and I also think the other problem is that we do have people coming from other countries that are not used to this, and I know that they come to other cities as well, but we have a higher density population of it, and it's something that has to be adjusted to.
We also don't get as much snow, so if you're not used to driving in snow, and then it snows for a day, it's a big deal. But if you live in a place so I'm from Ontario, remember? So in Ontario, you get used to driving in snow every single day for months and months and months and months. So it becomes you at first, when it first snows, you get kind of slippy and slidey, and how do you do this again?
Mm-hmm.
But then you get used to it, and you're good for 4 months of snow. But here, you get a snow, and you're like, it's slippy, slidey. How do I get used to the snow melts? You don't quite get used to driving in the snow before the snow melts, and then you might get another snow at the end of the winter. And then you're through that same thing again, trying to get used to driving in the snow, but then by the time you get used to it, it's gone. So I think that you can't compare the two, because if I'm used to driving all the time in snow, obviously I'm going to be good at driving in snow, or better driving in snow than somebody who does it once a year.
Right.
That's just a fact of life.
Yeah.
And you can pretend that's not true, Calgary, that radio station, but it is true.
Yeah.
It just is.
Your thoughts, B?
No, I disagree. and when I lived in Calgary, and we were dealing with, I was working for this company, and we were trying to talk to this head office in Vancouver, and then we heard that they had snow, and that they shut down the schools and everything. We're like, what's going on? Like, people. But when you live here, yes, it's a different kind of cold. It's not a dry cold like Calgary. It'll cut through you, and it is a lot different. So, yeah, the climate is not. It's not Maui.
No.
And interestingly enough, if wherever you're from, if you came to Tofino once a year to go surfing, you only surfed once a year. Do you think you'd be as good as a surfer as somebody who lived in Tofino and surfed every day?
Yeah.
Same idea.
Yeah. Right. It's
right?
practice.
It's practice.
Yeah. Okay, we're almost. The final question that I have, and then we're going to do some quickly promotion here, little promotion. What's wrong with transit in the snow, though? Do you guys have an opinion on that, or do we need to move on?
Is there something wrong with transit?
It always is down. My gosh!
Oh, really?
Oh gosh!
This is
I
the
can't
bonus
get
of
out of
working from home.
There you go.
You don't notice the transit's down.
I need to work more from home. I sometimes like to come
If the
out
roads
here.
are bad, I don't notice.
Oh, that's fair.
I just work from home.
The tracks have frozen up with the SkyTrain as well.
Oh,
They've
are they?
had issues with the doors
Okay.
and stuff like that. I just think that because it was another issue, and we're going right back to what Melody reflected on, is that when you're not having the same kind of, climate all the time, like I don't, this is a whole other topic, Kevin. We can't continue, but climate change is real, and Vancouver is definitely feeling it.
Yeah.
We had a really intense winter, more snow than we normally have it, so people were learning how to drive in it.
Right.
Because it happened and it didn't. But people in our homeless situation, a lot of facilities opened up to accommodate these people and try to get these folks off the street. So I do know that there are things in place that we're trying to make a difference.
Right.
But no, not everybody knows. And that goes for bus drivers as well.
They're not immune, right?
Right.
So they also practice this.
And so I think that's just the reality of living here.
Right. All right. B, you're running, and I'm keeping you far longer than you wanted to be here. Or you have to go. Tell us about what you're doing.
Okay. So my company again is Interactive Bee Media, and I created my first title, which is called How to Say Cheese. And I'm so proud that in this last year that it's won over 11 international awards for interactivity. I just came back from Nashville where we sweeped. We won Book of the Year. It is available on the iBook store. If you go on the iTunes store and type in How to Say Cheese, or go on the net, howtosaycheese.com, you will be introduced to a beautiful little site. And I co-authored and produced with my best friend who now lives in Australia, who's now a cheesemaker, but used to be a cheesemonger at Benton Brothers Fine Cheese. So I'll put a plug in for them too on Granville Island. All of the beautiful pictures that we took are amazing cheese that is available at their counter. Stop by, say, I want cheese, and give me a sample. And they will, and they're awesome there. So, again, I'm really over the moon about being able to create this interactive book. I'm a woman over 50. I was a web designer once, and I've reinvented myself. And with this software from Apple, it's free on the Mac. Anybody can make a book. You have to. Becoming a developer is a challenge, but just because there's steps involved, just like anything, you got to fill out a form and do the process. But the opportunities for self-expression are there, and I'm just really fortunate to. I'm grateful, and that's what I gotta say. I'll finish with that. I'm just a grateful woman.
Awesome. Melody, what's going on with you?
So first of all, B is an author with YVR Authors. And one day, B came to a YVR Authors talk and learned about awards. And how many awards do you now have, B?
I have 11, and I was included in the SFU Rare Book collection, and I've been featured in another publication called The Best of iBook Author.
Yeah. So one thing I do is I support authors like B through an organization called YVR Authors.
Yes.
Where they learn how to get awards, how to write books, how to publish, learn tons and tons and tons of things. It's an awesome group, YVR Authors. Look it up on Facebook. Come out and join us. The other thing I do is I have an academy called the Fairy Gma Academy. It's fairygma.com, FAIRYGMA.com. And that's where I help entrepreneurs tell stories to change the world.
Oh, they're looking at me. You don't even realize they're both looking at me, like with eyes like this. Yes.
Eyes like saucers.
Yes.
Eyes like saucers.
So, yeah. So if you're an entrepreneur and you want to learn to tell stories that will
Gee,
connect
if
you to
only there was a
clients,
guy in this podcast
Yeah.
that tells stories.
Yeah.
Only there was.
Wonder where.
Wonder where he is.
Yeah. That's me.
All right. And how do we follow you?
You can find me on Facebook, Melody Owen. You can find me on Twitter, Melody Ann, OMELODYANN. You can find me on Instagram, the same, Melody Ann. You can find me at YVR Authors.
And you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Interactive B.
Okay.
Follow me, and I'll follow you back.
BEE, Interactive
B-E, yeah, B-E-E, like the bug.
Like the bug.
Making the honey, no stinging.
Find me on Facebook, Kevin Olenick. I'll add you. Follow me on Twitter, KVOLE, SoundCloud.com, KVOLE, Spreaker.com, KVOLE. We are working with Spreaker to get this podcast on iTunes. It will happen one day. Also, will be on YouTube. You can like and subscribe to it as well, Kevin Olenick. This was a great conversation.
Thanks for having us, Kevin.
Thanks for working
awesome.
hard, diverse your community. And this city is great, and nobody needs to love and leave it. Well, that's your choice, but we love Vancouver. So there we go. Have a great day, everyone. Bye for now.